Everybody, I'm Walden Hughes, and with us today is a very special lady who was on CBS Mystery Theater, was on radio in Canada, New
Oh,
York,
yeah.
and did a lot of wonderful material. Corinne Orr, welcome to SPERDVAC'S.
Thank you so much. I know you have
How?
a wonderful festival. I've been to it.
We love, you've always been a mainstay. I remember when you used to be part of Friends of Old Time Radio back in New Jersey.
Oh, I love doing that. I miss it very much. Yeah. We
How
had,
did you and Craig meet? That's a good story. Maybe both you can react.
Craig is
how
off
did you two
camera
meet?
here, but
No,
Corinne
no.
can answer that.
no, I don't remember.
We met at Friends of Old Time Radio
Oh, of course.
or the Episcopal Actors Guild, one of
Oh,
the two.
yeah, that's where we
Yeah.
met. Oh, we've been friends forever. Craig and Bernadette, my pals.
I think we might have met at the Episcopal Actors Guild, Walden, by way of Arthur Anderson, who was also a member. And as you guys probably know, Lon Clark was the head of it for years. Lynn Rogers was a member. Oh my goodness, so many people, so many great folks have been members through the years.
So,
How did you get started in Canada?
okay, believe it, I was 14 and I was very good in school at acting. So I went and auditioned for Rupert Kaplan. He was a terrifying man. He was the top radio director. And of course, everything was radio in those days. And he was, you obeyed, he was very particular. And I worked with Bill Shatner on a radio show. And we met like once a week. And then we do the rehearsal. We had a break. We had lunch, and then we went back and did the show. And I would like you to know, I was 14, Bill was older. He took me to a restaurant and always treated me. He was so very nice to me. And I thought he was a terrific guy. But I only knew him well till 14, 15, and then he went on to stardom and stuff.
So was this heard nationwide in Canada, the radio show, or just locally? Or remember?
No, it was nationwide.
Yeah.
And I worked with Chris Plummer. And, I can't believe it. I was so lucky. But I didn't know it at the time. I just thought they were people and very pleasant. And then I moved to Toronto. And, I know, Jimmy Doohan was my friend. He was so nice. And half the Star Trek people lived in Toronto as actors too, so I got to know them. But then I moved to New York. Boy, that's a lot of moving around, right? And I've been here ever since.
Was most of the radio in Canada drama, or was it a little comedy? What was the general makeup of shows that you did?
Drama. I worked for someone, Alan, in Toronto. It was all drama, and they were wonderfully written shows. Oh, and then I got my own TV show in Montreal. I don't know how I forgot that. It was called Chez Hélène, and it was half English, half French. And I did that for a year with this obnoxious woman, Hélène. She got the job because she was Louis Saint Laurent's secretary, and she could sing. So we worked with her, but basically it was around her. She was not nice. She was mean. That's all. And so that's one of the reasons I came to New York. I didn't want to work with her anymore.
Was it scary to move to New York?
Terrifying. I did not know one person, not one. And I at the time I got a phone book. Remember those? Mm-hmm. And let's see, I went through advertising agencies, and coldly I knocked on doors and got a few jobs here, a few jobs there. And then I discovered the word show business. And when I made a little more money, I got a printer to print out funny comic book things with my phone number, like who's the best voiceover in town? And they go Corinne Orr and my phone number of my agent. And it was all about getting agents, getting work. And some of it was loads of fun at the beginning, really and truly. Like I did a lot of dubbing for foreign movies. You don't need it anymore because like we go, my, but, why. And in French, mais pourquoi, mais pourquoi. And we call those labials when the mouth closed. And the writers were the brilliant people. Anyway, I ended up doing little parts, but they discovered I could do little kids. So I was like the resident kid. And from that kid stuff, I ended up doing, I think, 300 cartoons. I did Speed Racer, my famous one. Then Marine Boy, I save the world every Saturday. And I want you to know we didn't make any money on these. It was peanuts. It was before residuals. I think Speed Racer has been running, what, 54 years or more?
Yeah.
And I made a whole $5,000 from it. They hadn't invented residuals. So I'm very famous, but I'm not rich, unfortunately. And
so you always had to learn. You always had to market yourself. That had to be a bit of a challenge because you know that's like a grind. You had to almost do it all the time to do that.
I'd come home. I'd make phone calls. I sent out brochures, postcards, and later on we had tapes, and we had they cost a lot of money. You made tapes, and then you sent them out, and then you made phone calls to follow up if they listened to it. And it is a business, and you've got to promote yourself. One person I tremendously respected was Raquel Welch. The reason being, she sent out like 60 pictures a night to every producer going, I'm convinced that's why she had a good career.
Now, Corinne, if I could mention, the person you did a lot of the dubbing with, and then he also did some radio, was Peter Fernandez.
Peter was great. He directed a lot of cartoons, and I was in most of them, I think. I really do think so. And I worked with him intensely for 3 years and then not. But by then I was doing commercials and making a little money. I didn't make very much, but I made more money. And I did about 1,000 commercials. I was Snuggle the bear. Yeah, Snuggle. And in Speed Racer, I was Trixie, go Speed, go. And Marine Boy, I was Marine Boy, and his girlfriend, Neptina. And I would play love scenes opposite myself, which was kind of challenging. And I'm very lucky because after my father died, I was able to support my mother and various other relatives. So I was very fortunate. I made a living, but I was thinking back to the strike, which is on now, and I was there for the 2009, it was 2009 strike, and it was horrible. I picketed every day, but we had no money. It was a rough time. That's all.
Talk about the camaraderie with actors. I mean, were there much when you moved to New York?
Yes,
camaraderie.
I had a ball. I'm talking about dubbing because that's where I started, and that was 4 movies into English. And we'd go and we sit around, and each actor would perform, and we kill ourselves laughing. Like once we said, okay, it was a mystery. Who's there? Who's there? And the door opens, says, Gallagher has got your lunch. And we fell apart laughing. And we had a lot of fun together. And we always had a comment to make. And after they devised Split, which meant you went yourself, they'd get like all your pages and you did let's say 4 hours of yourself, or if you had a small part, 1 hour by yourself, but there was no camaraderie. And then in commercials, we used to all do accents. We'd put on any kind of accent going, and we thought we were very funny, and I think we were. And, I had a good time then. But then they got rid of all the crowds, and now it's all 400 people for a commercial, and you never even meet anybody. You go in by yourself, you leave. It's very isolated. It's a different world. Thank God I had that fun time. And I'm grateful.
How did you wind up working with Hyman Brown?
I'm sorry, what?
Hi, Brown.
How did you wind up working with Hyman Brown?
I was doing, oh, let me tell you about him. I don't know. I auditioned for him. He liked me. He said I had a blonde voice. How about that? I don't know what that means. Anyway, everybody was terrified of him. So we go into the studio, and can I say nice things about him first? Because then I'm not going to.
Yeah.
He translated the Christian Bible, he recorded it and gave it away, which I thought was very nice. And he had a building on, I think, West 26th Street in the Fashion Institute area.
It's 1 block from where we live.
I think he owned the real estate and all of it. Okay, now on to the other. He was known to be very cheap. We got $80 a show. So he bought a very famous painting. It was $100,000. And he rolled it up into a canvas, and he got on the subway and took it home because he wasn't going to spend money for a taxi. So that's one story. Okay, so we get into CBS Mystery Theater. I'll tell you one thing he did. He had me do one part, Murders on the Rue Morgue.
Yes.
I did it in French. I almost died. My French is not that good, but I was so scared that I did it. It wasn't a lot. It was like 4 or 5 lines. But could you believe suddenly getting a French script? Through me. Back to High Brown. Excuse me. You start off. I'm laughing. You get a script, and it go. You don't fool around. You have to be very alert. Page 1, take out lines 7, 8, 12. Page 2, 6, 8, 9. Page 3, and he would go on like this, and you had to be really with it and cross out those lines because they were cut. Then, after that, he had 5 minutes to scream with Norman Rose, who was an obnoxious man, almost as obnoxious as Brown could be, and they screamed at each other. Rose would say something like, this script doesn't make sense, and Brown would say, drop dead or whatever, and they would fight and scream. Now, one day, I remember Brown screamed to this gentle, sweet woman, and she was trembling, and she went out shaking like a leaf, and I felt so sorry for her. For me, when they screamed, I could somehow turn it off. I don't know how. And I just ignore him. So I'm not saying his screaming didn't bother me. I much rather he didn't. And one day the sound man came to me. Oh, did he scream at the sound man? And he said, please call the union and tell him that he screams at me. So I called the union after at that time, and they said, hi, you've got to be nicer to your sound man. He said, what do you mean? He says, I'm a nice guy. I give to charity. I thought that was kind of funny. Then, so all I remember is the screaming was always, he said, actors act, sound men do sound. And he left it up to you. Actually, he was kind of a good director in that sense, because he didn't hover over you telling you how to read. You just did it. And I did a lot of shows for him. And what can I tell you? He was what he was, but he did produce shows. Come on, you got to admire him for that. He did some radio things. I think there was Lee Bowman I worked for in radio, and he was like sweet. The good directors are all former actors. Not High Brown, but other ones that I worked for, they had been actors. And so they were magnificent directors. They let you do just what you needed to do. And it was a joy. That was fun.
Did you get the script ahead of time, or once you walked in to record, that's the first time you saw the script?
That was the first time we saw the script when you walked in. You never got it ahead of time, never.
And generally, was it always, would they record the table read and then record?
No, they never
Okay.
recorded. Table read was rehearsal. I think we did it twice because the first time was all the cuts that I told you about.
Yeah.
Second time was the rehearsal and then the show. And believe me, we didn't linger. We didn't linger. The thing was to do it and get out, which we did. And
You know, did the actors get together and have a bite to eat or anything afterwards, or pretty much
oh, never. And I had been acting in Montreal. I did a lot of work there. And usually we had a friendship. Not in New York. Nobody ever had a cup of coffee with you, or even they said goodbye and that was it. You had no relationship with them whatsoever. I found it very cold. And because I knew nobody and I didn't know anyone in the city, it was heart-rending at times. That's all. So Walden, keep asking.
okay.
I got into commercials after that too, and I did very well in that.
Was
And
it mostly voiceover commercials, or what kind of commercials?
Yeah, I did voiceover. I'm trying to think about dubbing. It was wonderful at the beginning, but as I said, as they got more technical, and now, Craig, as they got more technical, they didn't need the exact mouthing. The machines could put it together. I don't know, but everything has become more and more technical, as you well know. And that's it. Oh, but we had such fun. I got to tell you about Friends from Old Time Radio. I had some of the best times of my life there. First of all, the people there were friendly. And I met Chuck McCann, who had me laughing away. And later on, much later on, he cast me and two other guys in some shows that we did in Rochester, New York. We spent a week doing shows. And he was so funny. And I knew Will Jordan. He used to call me in the morning about 8 o'clock. Quick, name the 7 dwarfs. I go, ah. But I know their names now. And let's see, I had a lot of, and then, Celeste Holm and her then husband, Frank,
Yeah.
he worshiped the ground she walked on. He couldn't take his eyes off her. He loved her. That was it. Then I met Kathy Crosby.
Yeah.
And she was scary because she had one of the worst facelifts I've ever seen. And she said, could you get me a job? And I said, well, you never know. But she was dying to work. And there were a lot of people who I met. Oh, Soupy Sales with this wonderful wife. He was in a wheelchair and she took care of him. She was great to him. And there are a lot of really fun people that we did meet. I can't remember all their names. Craig, do you?
Arthur Anderson and Jackson Beck.
Oh, Jackson. I did a lot. Oh my gosh, I did a record album with Jackson and Ed McMahon. And excuse me, Ed McMahon's wife, I'll never forget it. This is one of my first jobs in New York City at RKO Studios. I can't believe I remember it. And I had the lead. I was Little Red Riding Hood. And he was, who knows, the announcer. And his wife was there. She was one of the loveliest, sweetest women you could imagine. And he treated her badly. Get me coffee. Girl, that was my name. Girl, get me some sugar. Coffee, sugar. And she had a look like, I'll do anything to please you. But he got rid of her shortly after. And I always adored her and wished her well. That's all.
Tell me
So,
about the time when you started to teach actors. When did that come about?
oh, that was when I was teaching,
Yeah.
that was a volunteer job at SAG. And I was glad to do it. It gave me great satisfaction. But then we had diction, we had elocution, we could speak. Nobody can now. If you turn on the radio, you could die from the ugly sounds. But at that time, we had beautiful voices. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it very much. So that was rewarding.
Were most of the students eager to learn, or did they how was it working with the younger actors?
Oh, I adored them. I love them. Excuse me. They're all adorable. I like them. As a matter of fact, I'm very good with kids. And I remember one director said, tell them to do this, that, and the other. And I did, because they listened to me.
Hang on, Walden. Would you like some water, Corinne?
No, thank you.
Sure? Okay.
Yeah. So that's it. So my life was first dubbing, then cartoons, and then commercials. And that's basically how I survived.
Corinne, there was one more thing. You gave me some cassettes once.
Yeah.
Later, this would probably be even after High Brown. You did some recorded classic stories, sort of done as little like audio books.
Oh, yes. Gary.
Yes.
I can't think of his last name. He was a wonderful man, and we did classics. We recorded them at Joan Franklin's studio in New York, and that was fun. I've forgotten about that. We did a lot of famous writers. He'd write their stories or condense their famous stories, and we acted, and there were wonderful talent. Wonderful talent. He was a sweet, sweet man. Thank you, Craig, for reminding. And of course, I worked with Craig and his lovely wife, Bernadette. We've become friends forever.
Corinne's a doll.
No,
everybody knows she is. And she
no. We get along beautifully. And I'm blessed to know them. So that was good.
Where most of the recording work was done in New York? Was there a certain location? Were there certain studios that did most of the recordings that you did?
I say West 44th was a major street. I think we called it Mickey Mouse Street because there were so many studios there. Not now, but then. And Madison Avenue at the beginning, excuse me, please. Madison Avenue, I've got a frog. I got a cold yesterday. Please excuse me. Madison Avenue had all the ad agencies. So you would go there. And later on, people were looking for cheaper real estate, and they sent you to creepy places that I was terrified to go to. This was at the end of.
You remember where some of those places were?
Yeah, Lower East Side on a rooftop. West, so west, you're almost in the river. And I was scared. I didn't like going there. One time I was walking and a bum came over and touched my shoulder, and instantly a policeman jumped out of his car and said, "Get away from her." I was so grateful to him, so grateful. So I did not like going to those places. They were creepy. And what else?
Did they ever use any of the theaters to record? Like, you know, in the old radio days, they do some of the theaters in New York. Did they ever do that when you were in the 70s and so? Was that ever really
Never. Not that I know. I never worked in a theater. No. I mean, I did in Canada. I did nothing but theater, but not. No, we never record. We only recorded in recording studios. Oh, I remember one guy. He didn't want to give us a SAG union pay, and he was using, I don't know, he was making cassettes or something and selling them, but he didn't pay the talent. And I remember meeting with his wife, and she looked down, you know, an actor. Blech. So later on, he got arrested and went to prison. I thought I'd love to meet her again. I go, yeah. But yeah, he didn't. He was dishonest. So that's all. What else?
Craig, jump in. Anything else you think we should follow up on?
Well, no, I mean, I'm glad we got to mention the things she did, the later recorded classics, because I know they're a lot of fun. Corinne, did you do, I mean, Walden and some of the guys in old time radio, and this is one of my pet concerns, is that when most radio stopped in 1962, it didn't totally stop until High Brown started it again almost 10 years later.
Well,
did you do anything else in American radio when you were doing the dubbing work, or was it just the looping work at that point? Was there anything that you remember other than High Brown?
Yeah, the Lee, what is
Lee Bowman you mentioned, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I worked for him. I worked very little. There was very little work, but it was a joy. It was a joy to do those good shows. I love them. And those days are gone. And beautiful voices are gone. And that breaks my heart, because I love to hear beautiful speech and enunciation and stuff. It was fun. It was good. So how is it in California? How's your weather?
Very nice. Actually, it's a nice day, you know, so can't complain.
Good.
Can't complain.
So Walden, what other folks are on board for the SPERDVAC virtual convention? What other kind of, who all are you folks talking to, and what can we look forward to?
Well, we're doing a little, I'm not totally running the whole thing, but I'll tell you, but we're pulling some things out of the archive. We're actually going to present the very first suspense that SPERDVAC recorded in 1982. We had a professionally videotape at Capitol Records with all the California actors, Russ Tremaine, Janet Waldo, Lorene Tuttle, Virginia Gregg. So we're gonna run that. We're gonna run the Lone Ranger and Jack Benny recreation that we have. Frank Brzee had professionally filmed in 2008. We're gonna talk to Leonard Maltin, because you know Leonard wrote a book on radio.
Sure.
Famous.
Very
yeah. Keith Scott, Joe Webb, we did a suspense panel. So we're doing a little a variety of this and a variety of that. So it's still it's still work and play. I'm gonna interview Catherine Butterfield, who did some CBS Mystery Theater. She wound up being a writer. Okay. And even Julie Newmar. I did not know this. Julie Newmar did a little CBS Mystery Theater. So
my God.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so she broke her leg a few weeks ago, so I'm waiting for her to heal a little bit before we sit down. And so that's basically gonna be it. So, you know, and we're working on a date for next year. So hopefully we'll get something off the ground for in person. You know,
that's
so
great.
Yeah.
I did the Hollywood show in LA, and I met wonderful people. You said cowboys. I don't even remember their names. I know they were famous.
Well, there's Will Hutchins, who we worked with.
What a
FOTR.
doll.
Yes.
What a doll.
Yes.
He was so nice.
Will is the best. Will is the best.
So I met some great people, and I love when the West meets the East. It's just fun. And I thank you so very much.
That's the nice thing about the Friends of Old Time Radio and SPERDVAC. Everybody got to get together and socialize a little bit. It was not necessarily, okay, pick up a script, go and leave. You had the opportunity to enjoy each other. And I think that's so important, to be honest with you. It's what
it was worth everything. Yes, it was.
I mean, that's why we do the work. That's why we do the work, because we love to be together, not necessarily, you know, that's the biggest use of it, get to hang out with people you love. That's to me the fun part of doing this.
Well, I have to say one small thing as a guy who was blessed to act with people like Corinne and some of the, and even going back to George Ansbro, you know, really going back to some of the real veterans. It was so wonderful. I've always told folks there were, and I won't name names, there were a tiny handful of actors who came out who were just there to have a party for the weekend. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mean anything against that at all. But 98% of the actors, including dear Corinne and Arthur and everybody we've mentioned, it's the work itself. Like she said, we had fun before and we had fun after, but the work itself they took as seriously as if she was doing it back in Canada, or it was being done but with High Brown, or it was Arthur doing Let's Pretend. It was the table read and the mic dress and the show were a bunch of professional actors working together, making the best show they could. And the people at the table didn't care if it was George Ansbro in his 90s or somebody else in their 20s. They were just there to do a good show. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time. A wonderful time.
I thank you so very much. I truly enjoyed this.
And somebody who worked behind the scene, it's really nice to work with nice people. It saves headaches, you know. I mean, if you don't have people's ego involved, then we can really have a good time. And I generally try to pick people who work well together, and it makes my job so much easier as a producer to have people that love to be together, and that to me is just the fun benefit of it.
Thank you.
Too.
Thank you so very much. I've enjoyed it, and I thank Craig for helping me technically and otherwise. It was great fun.
Just writing, just being in the wing seat, that's all.
Thank you, Walden. Good luck to you.
Well, have a great afternoon, you two. Thanks for Craig for doing this, and we'll talk to you both soon.
We'll talk, Walden. We'll talk.
You bet.
Bye.
Is that it, Walden? You got it? I guess he signed us out.
I sure did. Good to go.
Okay.
All right.
Everything
I will
good?
call Zach and let him know, and we're good.
Okay.
Thank guys.
And tell Zach he can call me tonight on the landline. He said he wanted to do something, redo something with the Bob Oak show.
Sounds great. I'll let him know.
Thanks, Walden.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.